Certainly. I was born in Point Pleasant, Ohio, to Jesse and Hannah Grant on April 27, 1822, and had 5 other siblings. Though many of you know me as Ulysses S Grant, the name my parents gave me was Hiram Ulysses Grant. I never was a very good businessman, even in my childhood. I also had a great love of horses. When I was 8, I saw a horse that I wanted to purchase, so I asked my father if I could acquire it. My father decided to let me bargain for the horse myself and gave me instructions on how to barter. But since I was 8, I wasn't very good at bargaining, so I blurted out everything my father had said to me. I told the seller, my father told me to offer you $20, and if you won't accept that, I am to offer you $22.50. And if you won't accept that, I am to offer you $25. And of course, the man took $25. When I was 17, my father forced me to attend the Military Academy of West Point, New York. The school's registry made a mistake and listed me as Ulysses S Grant, not Hiram Ulysses Grant. Despite explaining my true name, they refused to change it. Upon graduating in 1843, I was stationed near St. Louis, where I met the woman who would become my dear wife, Julia Dent. Afterwards, I served in the Mexican-American War, and then served on several other assignments before finding myself entangled in this war between the states in 1861. The art of war is simple enough. Find out where your enemy is, get at him as soon as you can, strike him as hard as you can, and keep moving on. This is exactly the strategy I employed at Shiloh, Fort Donelson, and at Fort Henry, though I feel my greatest accomplishment was the siege of Vicksburg. Vicksburg was the last Confederate fortress on the Mississippi River, strategically placed on a large hill. By capturing it, we would split the Confederacy in half. President Lincoln and I both agreed, as he said, that Vicksburg is the key. The war can never be brought to a close until that key is in our pocket. We crossed in April 1863. I took my troops overland through Louisiana and met up with the Union gunboats that had traveled down the river south past the guns of Vicksburg. Though cut off from our supply lines, I thought it a better strategy to come at Vicksburg from the south. We crossed the river, and over the next 17 days, I maneuvered my troops inland, winning 5 battles and capturing the cities of Jackson and Canton. We made our way to Vicksburg, and after 2 days of unsuccessful coordinated attacks, I realized we'd have to dig our way in. Vicksburg is so strong by nature that sufficient force cannot be brought to bear against it to carry it by storm. It must be taken by a regular siege. So we held the city by siege until Lieutenant General Pemberton surrendered on July 4, 1863. After this victory, I became famous in the Union, and after the decisive victory at Chattanooga, I was summoned to Washington. I arrived in Washington on March 8, 1864, for my promotion to Lieutenant General and Commander of the entire Union Army. I went to Willard's Hotel with my 14-year-old son, Fred. Upon asking for a room, the clerk looked up at me sneeringly, obviously not impressed by the 2 golden stars on my dirty uniform, and said that I could have one of the attic rooms later on. I replied that that would be fine. He asked me to write my name down on the register. I wrote it down and handed it back to him. The clerk looked down and read Ulysses S Grant and son, Galena, Illinois. He looked up at me with astonishment and said, "The presidential suite is available now, General Grant." After a series of bloody but successful battles, I accepted the surrender of General Robert E. Lee at Appomattox Courthouse just 10 days ago on April 9th. It was a relief seeing an end come to this war that pitted brother against brother, but the end of the war was not celebrated long. The darkest day of my life was the day I heard of Lincoln's assassination. I did not know what it meant. Here was the rebellion put down in the fields and coming up in the gutters.